Okay, the video you're about to see is my attempt to illustrate how the chord tones result in the name that we give chords. And it is by no means a comprehensive study of all the chords under the sun. So cool your jets if you're thinking, hey, what about? Hey, you forgot. Hey, that's not exactly how you'd say it. I'm just teaching what I know from practical experience out there and my basic understanding of like what makes a minor chord called a minor chord, a minor seven, a dominant seven. Some of these flavors you're going to use a lot out there. I hope you enjoy, get something out of it, and maybe a few new shapes that you like to throw into a real life song. Enjoy. Okay, so let's take a quick moment to talk about the way chords get their names. And some of this might seem like a review. Some of this might be a real eye-opener for you. I just want to walk through it. I got the Guitar Pro chord window up here. Sometimes it freaks out and plays a crazy name for these simple chords, but let's start with a classic F major bar chord. Now, you may know this. We're going to add some ideas as we go. So this right here, that's just the fingering, by the way, so they're suggesting that we play that with our second finger. But that is the major third, right? So we would know that that's an F major chord. Just write it as F. Boom, quick win, one, done. Next chord would be F minor. So all we're doing there is lowering that major third to make it a minor third. It becomes F minor, right? So the major third or minor third, that difference will determine that underlying, is it a major triad, is it a major chord or a minor chord? Great. The next chord tone that has the most impact on the naming of the chord is going to be the seventh. So right here, there's no seventh degree. It's just roots, thirds, and fifths. But these are highlighted here, these sort of brown color dots, those are roots. So if this is an F right here and we lower that to be a major seven, boom, the name of the chord suddenly changes and it becomes this kind of a handful, but a nice smooth sounding, when you get it, major seven. So that's that major seven, regular F, we lower it to become a major seventh. We go one more and that becomes a minor seventh. So we've just reduced it. You're most of the time going to hear that referred to as a flat seven, right? But the actual interval is a minor seventh. That adds that flat seventh sound. They're interchangeable. Minor seventh, flat seventh. So we've got a major third. That's this note right here. And then we've lowered that root, not down to a major seventh. See how the name of the chord is major seventh to specify. And then when we go to that flat seven, that minor seven, they just write it as F7. So you're going to hear that referred to as a dominant seventh chord or just a seventh chord. So make sure you specify when you're talking about chords and naming them, whether it's major seven or a dominant seven. Very different sound, right? Okay. So you might be wondering, well, what about the combination? Of course, you've probably encountered, boom, that chord right there, that's a minor seven. So that's got that flat seven, that minor seven, as well as a minor third. You're going to see that a bunch, okay? What about, maybe you're starting to think, what about the combination of a major seven and a minor third? Well, that's a chord for sure. I mean, anything's a chord technically. And this particular sound is kind of like that sort of James Bond-ish type of chord. Very cool. It's kind of like, especially in different voicings, you'll hear the different like stack of those, the tension inside of those intervals really kind of shine. But that is a minor major seven, right? It's a hybrid chord. It's got a minor third and a major seventh built into it. All right, so I reset it back to an F major. Let's just kind of review and walk our way down here. F major. So we've got a major third. Let's say we lower that root down to a major seven. It's starting to sound kind of like a cool progression that we hear a lot, maybe sort of like Something in the Way She Moves by the Beatles. That's that dominant seven, that flat seven. What if we just kept going one more? Now we've got this, oh, okay. So that is a six right there in relation to the root. And the six is a really nice interval to add. So we've got another sound right there. What if we had that major six is what we have right there, and imagine that we started off with a minor seven. So this is, let's say it's this sort of familiar shape of an F minor seven. What if we took that flat seven right there, we brought it down to a six? That's a really cool cool sounding chord there. You can imagine playing that. If you're fretting it, smooth, jazzy, effective, just more flavors. Okay, let's go back to restarting with an F major. Something about these suspensions is good to know, is that a sus4 is what you probably already know. You're just sort of turning that major third into a fourth. And it's momentarily suspending it because it gives it that sound that it wants to resolve down to that major third. So it's going to be a half step above that major third to suspend and then resolve. In the last little bit, I want to show you, I won't dive too deep into all the many extensions as far as like the jazz chords that have like the 9, 13 and all that, but just to get you started with the idea of where that sort of foundation builds off of, it begins in most cases with a 7 chord. So let's say an F7, okay, that's that F dominant 7, it's got the flat 7, the minor 7, those are all different ways of saying the same thing. What would happen if we, on this first string, we changed this 1 up to what we would call now a 9. So you might already know this, but when it comes to chord add-ons and extensions, if we add on the second degree of the scale, so we're in F, we play the second degree of the scale, but it's stacked on top of a big chord, it's an extension we call the 9. So just add the number 7 to the 2 and you get the 9. If you add the number 7 to a 4, like the suspended fourth, you'll get an 11. That's why you'll see the 9, the 11, the 13, these are extensions. So this is a chord that you'll use a ton. Maybe not this exact voicing. Here's another voicing of it that you'll probably see more often. You know, as I'm transitioning through, it'll show some crazy chords there. And we'll get rid of that right there. So this is, Guitar Pro is saying like, oh, that's going to be a C minor over F, theoretically, possibly. But that right there is another way to play a 9 chord that you've probably seen. And the reason why is that we've got down here, we've got the root, we've got a flat 7, then we've got this 9. That's that second degree again, but because it's stacked on top of a flat 7, it now becomes a 9. It's an extension, right? And you'll also notice that sometimes we might not have all of the chord tones. Like in this case, we don't have a major third. But the critical thing is that if you have a root and a flat 7, and then you spell on top of that these chord tones like a 9, or if we let's see if we added. And I tried to do a 13 chord, but it just sort of freaked out. In my estimation, this would be a 13 chord, and I'll leave you with this. Ignore that crazy name up there. I don't know what's gotten into Guitar Pro today, but as far as I know, this would be an F13. That's a great shape. And it's another kind of fancier sounding kind of 7th chord, dominant 7th chord. So you might be able to use this in a context where it's like a sort of a jazzy blues. And I would spell this out rather than that crazy name that it has. This is a root, this is a flat 7, that's a major third. That right there is the 6th degree, right? The 6 is called a 13 in this case because it's stacked on top of a flat 7. There's a flat 7, so now this becomes a 13 in terms of what you call it, and that's a 9. So this is a great example of we've got the root, we've got the flat 7, we've got the third, we've got the 13, and the 9, but we name it after the highest ranking extension, right? I think, I don't know, I might be in a little bit over my head, but anyway, it's a cool sounding chord. I hope you enjoy it. More chords, more flavors, more fun. Keep up the good work. All right, see ya.